Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you to our Friday live at noon Central Time call for all of our members, participants, Facebook members. Today, we're going to be talking about the opportunity for baby boomers as freelancers as we roll out in 2021. Some truisms emerging on the horizon. Some tea leaves are a little bit easier to read now in terms of where the new kind of work is going to be coming from. And so as you log in today, if you put your name or go into the chat window and tell us where you're from, that's always helpful to know where we're talking to folks from, and always appreciate seeing that. Let me set up a few things so I can see that properly here. And then if you're listening to this on the recording, so you're not live with us on Friday, we'd like to welcome you as well. And we continue to monitor the chat. So if you have questions about anything that we talk about today, happy to answer those in the chat window. There's Bob and Jackie. Good to see you. Great to see you from probably nice and warm Roatan, and a little chilly in the States. I saw my first snowstorm in 14 years here in Dallas about what was it, 4 or 5 days ago. Very good memories in many ways, but I find that my joints don't like the cold as much as they used to. So looking forward to getting back to my home in Mexico as soon as possible. And that day is getting ever closer, as the vaccines roll out and we sort of move towards that whole immunity thing, herd immunity, some people call it. We can look forward to it sometime during this year, probably after the middle of the year, probably, but between the middle and the end of the year, things going back to not too normal, but moving in the direction of normal. More people able to get out, lower infection rates, all that kind of stuff, and I'm just reading the same news you are, but it's going to create a pretty fundamental change in the way we do business, because every business is going to have to change the way they operate, the way they deal with their employees. As we know, many employees have gone into the world now of remote work, and that has encouraged many companies to bring freelancing into the mix of their staffing. Before they were exclusively staffed by employees, and now they're being staffed by a combination of employees and freelancers. This gives particularly small business a much more flexible and economical way to staff as they come back from this. And many businesses are going to have a fairly large expense for retooling. It could be anything for a restaurant to doing construction work to create more space and allow them to do social distancing. It could be work rewriting personnel manuals and operations manuals and that kind of thing, to talk about guidelines for what happens when somebody is sick. And a lot of places now are screening people for employees for temperature before they even come onto the premises, or as they do. And so lots of new rules to comply with there. And all these things have to be documented. Many of these new rules are going to be mandated by, health authorities, as they should be, state authorities, federal authorities, that kind of thing. And there's a whole new compliance piece. And anytime you hear the word compliance in a context, you want to be aware that usually represents some work for a baby boomer, because compliance work is retooling. It's preparing presentations to explain the new rules to employees, in some cases to explain those to clients and customers, and in some cases to actually train on those. We've seen a number of people in our programs that are now doing presentations for companies that are talking to their employees about the new rules, and they're asking freelancers to not only do the presentation, but also in some cases to give the presentation to employees. So this represents another new opportunity. And I see Tom on there. Very good. Good to see you, Tom. Welcome in. Hope everybody's doing well, staying healthy, being safe. Kind of a critical time, but we're in a race with a vaccine, and here in Texas, lots of people are getting immunized, and it seems to be going pretty well from what I read in the local newspaper, that it's rolling out. So that's all goodness, and as it's one of the things I marvel at, and this is kind of in the weirdness of the news department, is rolling out vaccine like this. I guess by law they do it. The federal government produces the vaccine, and then they distribute it to the states. And it's no mystery that some states are doing better than others at administering it and getting it out there and that kind of thing. And so that's something that happens. But this relates to freelancing in a way, in that this is the first time we really rolled out a vaccine like this. There are not well-oiled systems out there that are in place to distribute vaccine. And I saw a news story the other day about actually seniors in Texas. The vaccine place where you go get your shot opens at 10, and they're going out there up to 2 hours in advance of the place opening and standing in this crazy cold weather that we've had here in Texas, waiting to get their vaccine. And so a lot of logistics about doing this kind of thing. And when you do something anytime new, there's a lot of extra examination of what the process is. There's a lot of learning how to do it. When after you've done it, for a week or two, you're much better at it than you are when you start doing it. And it's interesting to me, having traveled around the world, that most people, most cultures don't have the impatience that Americans seem to have with this. They expect this to work like a well-oiled machine, and it's doing something for the first time. So it's not a well-oiled machine, and it's something that'll take a little time to get going. And it's something that we're all glad that the vaccines are there, and we're all glad that they seem to be working, and we're all glad that over time we'll see the numbers that come up in terms of infection rates dying down and people being able to get out, and fewer people being infected. So this is all goodness. But I wind up myself telling freelancers that come into our programs, cut yourself some slack. You're doing this freelancing thing for the first time. And maybe it's not the first time. Maybe you did it 10 years ago, or maybe you did it 20 years ago, like I did when I got started. But it's the first time given the current circumstances. So a lot has changed. A lot of things are exactly the same, and some of the things are different. And that's what life is about, and particularly that's what freelancing about, is having the behavioral flexibility to adapt to new situations. And this seems to be something that just, in the United States, I'm watching the news like everybody else, and people seem to really struggle with this behavioral flexibility. They're not really organized when you go into the vaccine place, maybe the way they should be. But, this is the first, second, or third day they've been doing it. So lots of permission and sort of kudos to give the people that are out there pioneering. They're at people in the giving the vaccine are at risk of catching things, and they're working under all kinds of new health guidelines, and there's lots of new things to do. And this behavioral flexibility is what really enables freelancers to be able to do jobs that other freelancers might not do. And we have some people that come into our programs and they say, I just want to do proofreading. All I want to do is proofreading. Just give me something to proofread every day and I'll do it. And there are opportunities to work that way on these networks. But I feel like, as a freelancer and as designing the next 5 to 10 years of your life working online, you are so limiting yourself by taking that narrow view. There are new freelance buyers to meet. These are people that want to get to know you. They want to have good freelancers on their team. They want to give them repeat business. They love to identify somebody that they can use over and over again. And this is a big misconception, is so many freelancers, the way they approach it is, I'm going to go in and I'm going to work for this client this day and that client that day. And that is a brutal way to run your freelancing business, to take in dozens of new clients in a year. The ideal way to run your freelancing business is take in 3 to 6 clients, or you might take in a dozen clients, but over a period of the first 3 to 6 months, what you want to wind up with was 3 or 4 clients that you're working with on a regular basis. There's a lot of thrashing and a lot of anxiety that goes along with getting up and bidding on new jobs every day. And once you get to that point where you found a client that gets who you are, they appreciate what you do, they're eager to learn more about what you know and what you can do for them, because they like the way that you deliver your projects on time. They like the way that you ask questions about the job, so you make sure you get it just right for the freelance buyer. That's a really impressive thing for freelance buyers. In the world we live in today, a lot of people don't really want to communicate. Freelancers will see a job assignment and they'll be awarded the job assignment, and they'll do the job assignment and they'll take that and flip it into the back to the client and go on to the next job. And the client won't be so happy. Maybe they're not so dissatisfied that they don't mark you down or that kind of thing. Usually, if they're not happy with the job, they usually won't leave any feedback. But sometimes I've seen people even leave good feedback when they get the job back, but they're not really happy with it. And the important thing is, will they use you again? And that's the indicator that you've established a relationship with a client. And that's really, if you peel back all the layers of our business, we're all about helping freelancers establish good relationships with the clients that they work for. And that's an important idea in how all those pieces fit together. So if you're freelancing now, I'd like to just ask the group, do you have at least one client that you have a good relationship with? And it may be a client that you've only worked for one time, but it's different than maybe other clients that you've worked for where you feel like there's a relationship forming. Just drop a note in the chat window. Even if you're listening to the recording on this, I'd just like to get a sense of that in our process here, and understand that, because that's really what we're going for. Freelancers like working, or freelance buyers like working with freelancers who are honest, trustworthy, dependable. There's any number of things that you can be there. Let's see, we got, is it appropriate to ask questions in proposals when bidding on jobs that are interesting but lack details? No. Well, I would say it varies from system to system. but in most systems, you can't ask questions during the proposal phase. And the reason for that is these systems are designed and optimized to make the freelance buyer happy. And the freelance buyer is contracting a job on one of these networks because they want to reduce the amount of activity they have to deal with. And if somebody posted a job that was interesting to a lot of people, they might have 20 or 30 people responding to it, and they might have 2 or 3 questions from each person that was responding to it. So right away, they have 80 emails or 60 emails that they have to answer, and that defeats the whole purpose. So for a very good tactical reason, you can't ask questions, but you can do some things to still bid on the job. And this is a fairly common problem that we see with articles. Somebody will give a great description of an article they want written, and then at the end, they won't put in the number of words they want the article to be. And a lot of articles are in the 300 to 500 word range, very short, easily readable on the internet. And some of them go up to the 2,000 word range. Well, pretty much when you're writing an article, the more words you write, the more money you get paid. And so there's a great variation in difference. So for example, if you saw one of these assignments that had a description of something for you to write an article, and you're a good writer, and it's something you know a lot about, and you're just the right person to write that article, but they forgot to put in the word count, you could just abandon the job, just not bid on it, which is one approach. But one tactic you could take is you could say at the end of the proposal, that the number of words of this article was not in the job assignment, and you're bidding on this based on the assumption that it's between 500 and 700 words. If it's greater than that, you would adjust the rate accordingly. And that gives you the opportunity to bid on the job, to let the freelance buyer know that you're a professional. You don't say things like, hey, you're an idiot, you forgot to put the number of words in. You just do a very respectful, assumptive number of words of the article and tell them what you charge to do that. And then you leave the door open. If it's a lot more than that, your price would be adjusted accordingly. So if somebody says, I'll do a 500 to 700 word article for $200, say, if it's going to be a 1,500 word article, it would adjust accordingly. So, and you would be paid more for that, $400 to $600 or something along those lines. And so all this stuff is easy to work out. A lot of people new to freelancing, they see lots of brick walls, and there are really not a lot of brick walls when it comes to working as a freelancer. There are people freelance buyers make mistakes, and a lot of freelancers will not bid on a job unless it has the number of words in the article. They just say, I'm not going to waste my time. Well, that is an approach to take, but if it's right up your alley, if it's something you're really tuned in on, you don't want to let that opportunity go by. You want to be flexible. You want to give the freelance buyer the benefit of the doubt. You want to make it easy for them, not to reinforce, hey, I'm an idiot because I forgot to put the word count in there. You want to reinforce more that you have the skills and background in order to do that job. And that's what's going to bring you the job. So something to consider. Now, there are other jobs that don't tie into your skills, your background, your knowledge, or interest. They might be good jobs. They might be big jobs. They might be several $1,000s. But I really encourage you not to do those jobs that are too unclear or too generic, because it's when you don't have an inside track by virtue of your skill set, your experience in an industry, that kind of thing, you're really losing traction. You sort of drift back into the pack of all the other people that are bidding on that job, and so this will uh, uh, largely be a waste of time because you don't have a competitive edge. What we look for is you always want to have a competitive edge. When you look at a job, if you don't see 3 or 4 reasons that you are better qualified than most people that would bid on that job, you want to not bid on it. You don't waste your time. There's enough jobs on all of these networks to uh, provide you with a steady stream of not just assignments, but of buyers that work with you on an ongoing basis, that you don't need to chase everything that moves. And this is one of the things that we work hard to do for new freelancers is teach them to be selective. On any given day on the Upwork system, there's 100,000 to 150,000 assignments. And I was just looking at proofreading jobs with somebody the other day, and there are 3,800 proofreading jobs on that open on that day. And within that 3,800, you want to start paring that list down by putting in your keywords, your qualifying words, and bring that list down to about a half a dozen. And if you can bring it down to a half a dozen by using the keywords that are specific to you, you're really going to get in there and be competitive on that job. So very good way to do that. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and this is many of you, like I did over the years, heard this term change management came along in our lives. And for most of us baby boomers, interestingly enough, interesting fact, we didn't start out life with a computer on our desk. When I got out of school and went into the workforce, for the first 10 years, I didn't have a computer. Nobody had a computer. Computers were things that lived in the data center and that kind of thing. And change management came along to deal with the human side of people learning how to use computers. And in the very early days when I worked for Apple Computer, we had these, maybe one, we were calling on large companies, and maybe 1 out of 100 or 2 out of 100 people in a large bank or that kind of thing actually had a computer on their desk. A lot of them had the CRTs on their desk where they could tap into the mainframe and look up account information, all that kind of stuff. But really having a computer on an individual's desk was not popular for many of us for the first 10 to 20 years of our career. And as it became more popular, more and more people had to figure out how to use it. And in the early days, as you well know, these computers were massively difficult to learn how to use. I remember word processors that you're typing along with something. They didn't have the autosave feature back in the early days. And if the power dipped a little bit, the 300 words you've written would just disappear and you'd have to start all over again. So those were some of the kinds of frustrations that happened. Printers gave us all lots of headaches. It was very common. Different places I worked, waiting on the printer to get the document out, or a bunch of documents get stuck in the print queue and you have to flush all the documents out of there and tell everybody to resend their documents to the print queue. Lots of problems, and this created behavioral issues. It created psychological issues, and this category called change management really came along to help the people side of dealing with all this technology and stuff, help people adapt, help people adjust, help people learn the new systems. There's this concept that if people resent the new system that they're using, they get really frustrated. They get an attitude. They don't use it. They're passive aggressive, or they just don't use it. And all the benefits that accrue from using technology don't really appear in their lives. And change management was very good to get us through that period of time. It was sort of a discipline. A lot of us would go to change management seminars, and it would be things like how to talk to your employees about the new technology we're getting, that sort of thing. And now we're going through probably the biggest change management since the 90s. That's over 20 years ago. That we're now going into the world of remote work in a huge way, and we're doing that with our coming out of the COVID situation, because the way the environment, separate and apart from the computing environment, the computing environment isn't changing that much. We've been training people on Zoom for 4.5 years, so it's not so much that's it's been out there, people know how to use it, that kind of thing. But what is different is people working from home, and how do you coordinate things, and it's not just about using their computer and being able to make Zoom calls. It's how do you keep people focused on the goals they have for their workplace? How do you keep them coordinated in space and time? There's a tendency when you work remotely to get isolated. Some of us like that. Lots of freelancers like the idea of getting a job or a series of jobs at the beginning of the week, and then they can work on those jobs on their own schedule and deliver them by the end of the week or by the following week, that kind of thing. That's very desirable. And the great news is there's lots of that kind of work out there. And so that's goodness really for us all. But the more demanding, what we would call real-time situations, where teams of 3, 6, a dozen people have to coordinate in space and time and throughout the day, or sharing information, asking questions, getting answers back, providing information to other people that have a job to do, and they need that information that day rather than or on a daily basis, rather than something that they can get at the end of the week or the beginning of the following week. That creates a whole different set of challenges, and there's going to be a whole new wave of change management coming along to do this. And in part, what that means is that you have people that are checkpoints for different individuals. They're checking that certain things have been accomplished, certain people have done their job, certain reports have been produced, certain products have been shipped, certain services have been delivered. And when you had everybody in the office, you could tell when services were delivered that were obviously remote services. But you don't really have a feel for that when everybody's delivering those services from home. So coming up with new ways to deliver those services and monitor the quality of those services are going to be a big part of what we're looking at going forward. And of course, we'll have this sort of, for the foreseeable future, this kind of monitoring of the virus situation or a virus situation. There could be other viruses along the way. There's been a series of flu viruses over the few decades that we've all been kicking around the planet, and usually we throw them off. This one happened to be particularly more aggressive in certain ways, and necessitated or led to the shutdown. But that's a new thing that we'll be monitoring. It'll be like we used to monitor the weather, where everybody will be much more mindful of the flu season and that kind of thing. So just a whole lot of new ways to work, a lot of new opportunity to get into this, a lot of ability to, if you've developed this concept and this way of working that is flexible, you have a real leg up in terms of your ability to compete in this marketplace. And so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat window. We'll look forward to seeing you next Friday, and we look forward to seeing our members on next Tuesday night. And have a great week freelancing till we see you again. Take care. Adios. Be sure and like the broadcast on your way out if you got a little piece of goodness out of it. And we'll see you again soon. Take care.